Where were we? Okay, I made this little adjustment here, and we can now see we're back to our pretty close to 90 degrees, and you can see there's plenty of, I mean, how far down does the float have to go? So this is letting fuel in all the time right there. We can see as long as you got a little bit of travel. This little spring thing, you want to make sure you don't, when you're adjusting your tang, this piece here to get your level, you don't want to go putting any weight on this little spring-loaded seat. Well, it's not really the seat, it's just a spring-loaded gizmo. All this is doing is keeping everything sealed nicely while the bike's bouncing along the road. So if you're getting vibration, it's a damper, basically, a type of damping. So that's holding it closed even though the floats are bouncing up and down with your fuel jiggling around in the float bowl. So fuel's coming in, you can see the whole mechanism has dropped right out of the its housing or the seat there. So that's not a problem. I don't see why you should want it any deeper than that. So anyway, that's where so I'm going to just give this a little tweak now. Before we go any further, we'll see where we are. I use a vernier. I mean, if you haven't got one of these things, they're so cheap. Just get one, even if you just get a cheap one. Yeah, don't let fuel pour all over it either. Not good. Okay, so like this one just had. All right, so I take my measurement right here. Let's put this, can't really do it like this, but just for the camera you can see what's going on. So this is just the housing, or part of the aluminium body of the carb that houses the pilot jet itself. You got your main jet with your emulsion tube underneath there. That's a central. This is your off throttle running. This is all part of this circuit here where we did this 2.5 turns outwards of the adjustable pilot screw. So this is the pilot jet, pilot screw. This is all part of the circuit, and this is just the housing. So this is just where I've been resting my vernier. I'm getting a reading around about 19 and a half, maybe about 19 mil. So I want that deeper, so I'm going to aim for about 21, maybe 22. So I'm just going to very simply, you can see if you've moved at all, because I was almost parallel with the floats. It doesn't look like we moved much there. Okay, it seems like I've got a little bit of movement. Something you want to check as well, or be careful of as you're doing this, is not to actually get these floats out of alignment left and right. Yeah, that looks pretty square to me, but it's easy. They're pretty flimsy. Yeah, so when you're doing this, try not to make one side higher than the other. Put this back in again. Okay, so I'll do my check quickly with the vernier. Okay, that's got me around 21 there. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, it's a little tricky to do it like that. 20.37, so that's pretty close. If you got a there are gauges made for this, and they normally take the reading they'll be taking is something like between here, the flange face of the float bowl, and here, and just drag that thing along. That would be the reading most people refer to. And what they'll also tell you to do is to be careful when you're that you're not putting any load on this little spring adjustment here. So on these particular carbs, the spring is quite strong, so I could hold the carb like that. It's not going to drop down. And even here, I mean, so basically you don't want your float on that spring when you're taking your measurements here, because you'll get incorrect settings. So that's the spring loaded up, as you can see here, and there is no load there. And like I say, this spring is so quite strong, it doesn't load up the spring even with the carb sitting there like that. Okay, while we're in here, this side of these carbs, here's another really good useful tool. Get yourself a magnifying glass, particularly if you're partially blind like me. So yeah, it's easy to get these jets mixed up. I mean, evidently this is your on this side, your pilot jet on this particular model is a number 41. These are parts of, or so it's 0.41 of a millimeter. That's the hole in the middle there, drilled through. And this one, again with the magnifying glass, your main jet is 122 on this particular bike, on these carbs. And another thing, while we're in this area, if you were to squirt your carb cleaner or even WD-40, whatever you want to push through, well, not whatever, something that's going to be good for the carbs rather than bad for it, carbs or carb cleaner, you can push carb cleaner with this jet out here, and you should see the carb cleaner coming out from both holes here. This is where the fuel comes out here while you're idling, this little tiny pinhole in the mouth of the carb. So this is on the engine side of the carb as opposed to the air filter side. So this is your off throttle running right here. There's another hole here that is obscured by the butterfly valve itself. If I open that valve, when you start to open that valve, you're going to get more fuel just coming all the time from your pilot circuit. So that's off throttle running, deceleration, both through these holes here. So that's you want to make sure they're clear. So that's a quick check there. Carb cleaner through there to make sure those two are clear. We've done that one. There's a couple of breather holes in here for the float bowl. They're pretty big. Yeah, there's one there, one left and right. I think that's about it for that. So I'm going to put that side back together, and maybe we'll have a look at the diaphragm side. One other thing, obviously, if you want to get, while you're doing your tests, if you're having flow problems while you're trying to get your float level set up, it could possibly be, take these screws out of here, it could possibly be that you have all sorts of gunk which will collect in the lower part of the bowl, and that's where that flow is through, eventually comes out here. That there is this part of the molding here which comes into there, which this is just a what would you call this screw anyway. This allows, it's a tapered screw, there you go, nothing to it. So that just allows fuel to flow from your float bowl out of this thing to do your float level adjustment check. And when you undo these things, it's a good idea to do them up tight so you don't forget. Alright. Okay. Just moving this plastic securing gizmo for the needle in the slide. Now, if we look down inside this hole, maybe we can't see, but I don't even want to try and get a flashlight or a torch in here. Anyway, there's a little nib down in there that stands up quite substantially, maybe more than a millimeter. So when this thing sits down, your needle, the needle is actually kicked off to one side. Now I wouldn't have thought that'd be correct, but I'm sure Yamaha have done that for some purpose. I just can't think what it is. There's something else here as well, which people have mentioned. I mean, it's pretty tough to get it wrong with these because you have this tab here. Now this is for alignment when you're putting your slide back in place with your diaphragm. You can't get it wrong, right? Because that little tab's got to go in there, so that can only go one way. Yeah. Now the reason being you want this the right way around is these two. I mean, if somebody changed out the diaphragm on you, maybe put it the wrong way around, these two holes here need to be front forward. Yeah. Don't ask me what they're for, but evidently they have to be towards the front. These ones are a little bit off, but hopefully that doesn't matter. So what to do here? The recommendation is you notch your little plastic pin here, this part here, put a notch in it so that it sits on that little raised piece, and then the needle is square. Now if I look at this needle through the magnifying glass, I can't see any obvious wear. While you got the magnifying glass out, these needles are actually marked as well, and the front is different from the rear. Now this one is 120, I believe. Now Y-20, I think. Y-20, and that marking, whatever it is, they're different. Front and rear carb, or right and left carburetors are different. Right there is the number Y-something. Anyway, check the manual, make sure you got them the right way around, or if you take them out, make sure you put them back. They might have been in the wrong place in the first place. So anyway, it's worth something worth checking on, something to look out for. The other thing to look out for when you put these things back together, just for demonstration, I know the needle's not in there at the moment, but some sort of white gunk in there. I actually put grease in here. In this, I'd probably recommend getting some thick silicone grease for this, but when you do put these things back together, with your tab all nicely in place, and this bracket will be out of here, etc., etc., this wants to sit down in that little, you got a little raised portion on the outer edge, on the perimeter of this diaphragm. Obviously that's got to sit down in the groove. That's where it goes, right here, and it doesn't want to go anywhere else. And it can go back in like this if you're not careful, and it's pretty easy to do. Take it from me. So if you do that, nothing's going to run right, and that's going to cause further confusion. So a little bit of silicone grease or something. You can actually blow through this tube here and it will raise the diaphragm. Now I'm not sure if it will raise it, I haven't tried this, whether it will. This vent tube here, you got one on either carb, if you blow into that it will lift the diaphragm once everything's bolted down. But yeah, really keep an eye out for that one. That's an easy one. I'm going to clean this up, put a little bit of grease in there, just maybe on 6 points, just to make sure it's going to stay down like that. Yeah,